What do Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat have in common?
If you answered that they are both fighting games, you would be correct.
But another thing that they have in common is their interpretation and representation of Asian characters. Hello, I'm Brent Hopkins.
And I'm Vien. Throughout the history of video game development, Asian characters and Asian cultural representation has been present. This is primarily due to the fact that the Japanese video game industry played and still to this day makes up a large portion of video game development. Large game development companies such as Sega, Square Enix, Capcom, Bandai Namco, and Konami are some of the most well-known and established names in gaming that everyone in the industry knows about. 2 out of the 3 most popular current generation video game consoles are developed and supported by Japanese companies, Nintendo and Sony, and their sales in the industry are nothing to scoff at.
Isn't it odd then that the most popular characters and franchises by these Asian companies seem to all be Western-inspired characters? When you hear the name Nintendo, you rarely think of any characters that are Asian.
And not only this, but through games that are developed by Japanese studios and then shipped internationally, rampant censorship or the elimination of Asian culture and references throughout games have been changed for Western audiences. This is the case with series such as Persona, where characters who were previously Asian were switched to a different race, their names have been changed, and any reference to Japanese culture was removed. And this isn't the only series that this has happened to.
In Western-developed video games in the past, there seemed to be an absence of Asian characters, and those characters that are present are usually highly stereotyped. There are many Asian stereotypes, such as the Charlie Chan, or side characters in video games that are effeminate and non-threatening to show the superiority of the more masculine protagonist. Fu Manchu, the evil and cunning scoundrel-like mastermind threatening Western life. The China doll, the submissive and hypersexualized Asian female stereotype of a character who is weak and needs protection or saving. The Kung Fu Master, a character whose main characteristic is their martial arts expertise, and that is only due to their Asian heritage. The Samurai or Ninja, which are characters that are highly masculine and usually are fanatically obsessed with honor and lack emotion. Or the Dragon Lady, characters who are hypersexualized female evil temptresses who try to lure the main character with sex appeal. Characters such as Chinese assassin Lo Wang from Shadow Warrior 1997 were highly problematic.
Shadow Warrior was a first-person shooter developed by American video game studio 3D Realms in 1997.
While the game itself was built and inspired by Duke Nukem, a notoriously raunchy and questionably misogynistic game, Shadow Warrior is similar but with a touch of racism. The character Lo Wang was voiced by a Caucasian man, for one, who used the racist broken English stereotype to be depicted as Asian. The dialogue of the character also was raunchy, mocking and making dirty jokes of his Asian last name.
A similar occurrence happened when American video game developer Midway Games series Mortal Kombat created the character Liu Kang. Liu Kang is a Chinese character who represents the Kung Fu Master stereotype. His original design and in-game sounds were high-pitched shouts similar to the noises made by famed actor Bruce Lee.
This isn't only a problem with Western studios, however. Even within the Asian video game industry, stereotypes of each race within the culture have been shown and mocked. Japanese video game Street Fighter depicts certain Asian characters that are not Japanese in stereotypically offensive ways.
This is the case with Dalsim, who is of Indian descent, and more recently with that of Fang, who is inspired by the typical offensive stereotypes of the Chinese. Daoism is a character who uses the stereotype of Hindu mysticism to create a character who is very skinny with a skull necklace, who would stretch his body and shoot fireballs.
Fang, a Fu Manchu stereotype, is a character who is shown with almost all the negative stereotypes of the Chinese people. An effeminate body, the large hat and small black circular glasses, using poisons and dirty or cheap tricks as his fighting style, having a superiority complex, and overall being an evil scoundrel-like character. So even within Japanese media, certain Asian cultures are mocked and stereotyped. Today, however, it is true that steps have been made towards the better, and more acceptable representation of Asian characters are present in modern video games.
The Street Fighter franchise gained massive popularity after the success of its second game, Street Fighter II, which introduced all your favorite characters such as Blanka, Chun-Li, and Bison. The most iconic characters of the Street Fighter games, Ryu and Chun-Li, are both Asian. Ryu is a martial artist from Japan, and Chun-Li is a fighter from China. These two characters are so iconic that they alone can represent the series, representing Capcom, being on the front of posters, game covers, and in the lineups of mashup games like Marvel vs. Capcom and Super Smash Bros. They are even iconic outside of Japan, being voted as top famous characters in video game culture, especially in pop culture around the world, having a large following in cosplays, comics, and a movie that we don't really talk about. But hey, at least Raul Julia made a good bison.
An example relevant to what has already been stated, the characters Liu Kang of Mortal Kombat and Lo Wang of Shadow Warrior were reimagined with less racially insensitive stereotypes in subsequent games, although Lo Wang is still voiced by a Caucasian male.
In Shadow Warrior, the 2013 reboot of the original 1997 game, you assume the role of a younger version of the protagonist, Lo Wang. Lo Wang is portrayed as your typical bad boy. Cool black outfit, check. Sunglasses, check. Buzz cut and goatee, check. Wields katanas, dual wields guns, has supernatural powers, and slays demons, check. And now he's no longer your stereotypical Asian warrior who makes cheesy mispronounced one-liners. In fact, he speaks perfect English with an accent.
Popular games of the past decade also depict main characters of respectfully Asian heritage. This includes characters such as Faith of Mirror's Edge, a badass Asian parkouring vigilante woman in a hyper-capitalistic society.
Wei Shen of Sleeping Dogs, an undercover Chinese-American cop who infiltrates an underground society.
Overwatch's cast of Mei, a Chinese climatologist who controls ice, Diva, a South Korean professional gamer who rides a mech, and Hanzo and Genji, two Japanese brothers who, while may seem to fall into the samurai ninja stereotype, are respectfully depicted and given an in-depth and human backgrounds.
Morgan Yu of the 2017 game Prey is a capable researcher and test subject on an orbital space station, and Florence Yeoh of the 2018 game Florence is a 25-year-old Asian woman who lives in a Western society and grows through her love and life experiences.
Even today, representation of Asian persons in video games, although not normally negative, are few and far between. We still have a long way to go as an industry to properly represent Asian culture equally within video games.